We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
Hey, I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
And we're your hosts for the Travel Agent Podcast. Today, we're headed down south to an L-shaped state, which was always easy to recognize when I was doing like map quizzes for the U.S. because it was an L for Louisiana. Yeah. Capital, not New Orleans.
No, it's not. Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge? Probably Baton. We're going to take you to, speaking of mispronunciations, New Orleans.
Yeah, I went to New Orleans.
Now, did you hear it, Nolans? Is that true?
I didn't pick up on it, to be honest. I wasn't listening for it.
Right.
But maybe. Maybe my wife can attest to that. I don't know. Did you hear anything?
I feel like it was somewhere in the middle. Because I just tried to pay attention to the Lyft drivers that we took.
Yeah.
I feel like they are the source.
They are. They're the authentic source.
I feel like it was a good in-between.
No one corrected you?
New Orleans.
But they knew right away that you weren't from there.
Yeah.
Well, I tried not to say it because I knew if I said, we're really enjoying New Orleans, that they would take us for tourists right away, as if the Lyft didn't do it.
Yeah.
So, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have your wife on this podcast, Will. Kristen, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
You went with Will to New Orleans.
Yeah.
For a few days.
Yeah, we went for, 4 nights, right? I think 4 nights. Yeah, 3 nights.
You flew into New Orleans Airport. Airport code MSY. That's Michael Sierra Yankee, named after John Moisant.
Oh, yeah,
He was the great aviator of the late 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
Rest in peace. This city is kind of wild. We think of Bourbon Street. We think of craziness. We think of graveyards with graves above the ground. We think of all sorts of crazy seafood. Just kind of a crazy party scene, as well as Mardi Gras. And I want to say it's the Mississippi River.
Yeah, that's right.
It's where it finishes, or I guess starts, depending on where you.
Oh, that's a good question.
Which way does it go? But there are riverboat cruises that start and end in New Orleans and do 7-night round trips. Those are really popular, as well as cruises that'll even stop there for Mardi Gras and let you into New Orleans for a few days. But we're eager to hear about this city. What's going on here? What did you experience? What are you going to recommend? Really eager to hear your thoughts, Will and Kristen. And I'd like to get started with our defining words.
Let's do it.
Here's 3 words to help you. Here's our defining words.
So this was actually kind of hard because there are a lot of things I can define New Orleans, but I did get it down to 3. And the first one is kind of obvious, that it's jazz. And I mean, it's really interesting because Kristen and I are not big fans of jazz.
Okay.
Oh man, the people are going to come for us now.
Maybe you haven't found the right jazz for you.
No, I think that actually is. That's a good point because I think it's not something that like I turn on the jazz station on, Spotify in the car.
Right.
But when you're actually there in the live music, because it's playing in the jazz clubs and on the streets, and it has a lot more character to it. It has a face to it, and you can feel. It's just fun. I felt like it was super fun. I really enjoyed every time that we heard a jazz musician, regardless if it was one person playing saxophone on the street or a group of like 10 guys that had got together a group. Like, it was always fun.
Yeah, there can be some really impromptu bands just playing, and it's really cool. Like, you can just be walking along at night, and in the distance, you just hear some jazz music playing, or I don't know, clarinet, saxophone. Yeah, jazz instruments.
No, I was gonna say, those are
drums.
Instruments. Yeah, drums. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a Bourbon.
You could have a guitar.
Yeah.
So you can you can either walk on Frenchman Street, and there are these dedicated jazz clubs.
Okay.
And you can find a few of them on Bourbon Street, but that's what Frenchman Street's really known for, is jazz clubs. But even if you don't go to either of those streets, you're going to come across live jazz just walking around the city, and it's so cool.
Yeah, and that's coming from people, like you said, that are not normally people who listen to jazz just on their everyday. So I feel like that speaks to how fun it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Louis Armstrong?
Yeah, Louis Armstrong, which is who the airport is named after now, Louis Armstrong. Yeah, he's a very famous musician. There's also Louis Armstrong Park, which Bourbon Street kind of feeds into.
Okay.
We didn't get a chance to walk around in there. It was closed, I'm guessing because of COVID. I'm not exactly sure.
Sure.
But we couldn't walk around in it. But it looked like kind of cool from a distance. It was right next to our Airbnb. I mean, it was real walkable from our Airbnb.
Louis was born in New Orleans, 1901.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Played the trumpet, right? That's kind of his.
Yes, trumpet.
Very cool. But my second defining word is alcohol for more reasons than one. What's really cool about New Orleans is actually you can walk around the city with alcohol in hand.
So it's
Open container.
Yeah, it's open container.
The
it's
opposite of a dry city.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
They call
of
it a
dry
wet city? I've never heard of wet city.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I mean, you could call it a wet city for,
Yeah.
no reason.
There's only 10 cities in the United States that has open container. Not open
Las
container.
Vegas
but,
has got to be one.
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Should we try to name them all?
Las Vegas, Memphis, New Orleans.
Wow.
There's only one other major city. The other one are like
Nashville. No?
No, Memphis was the only one in Tennessee.
Okay.
But yeah, the other ones, there's one major city that I'm forgetting. And then the other ones are just
Phoenix
like little
or something.
towns.
No.
Not sure. You can look it up.
I'm on it.
But yeah, so you can walk around, you can grab a drink, and as long as it's not glass, you can walk around anywhere in the city and just drink. And it's pretty cool. But it's also kind of creates a party atmosphere. Bourbon Street is definitely a party street, and that's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
It's pretty rambunctious. It kind of has the ambiance of a frat party. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, did you find it?
Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah.
Really?
How could I forget? I love Savannah.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's not just alcohol. There are a couple things. Hurricanes and hand grenades.
Which are alcoholic beverages.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about hurricanes
Or,
and about our experience with our hurricane. But
okay.
yeah, there's these drinks called grenades and hurricanes, and they're pretty heavy in the liquor department. And
Are they full of sugar?
Yes.
Yeah.
So is it one of those where you're sitting down drinking it comfortably, like, oh, this is kind of tasty, then you stand up and
Yeah, it sneaks up on you.
lights out.
Yeah, because it doesn't.
Know who
Grenades
you're.
didn't taste like it had like a lot of alcohol in it, but
Make sure you know your friends have a designated Uber driver.
That's why they call it a walkable city. Not anything to do with the fact that you can walk everywhere. It's that you have to walk everywhere.
Got it.
Drink so much. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, my last defining word is actually Creole,
Yeah.
which it's interesting. Kristen, you did a little bit of research on it and you put it pretty well. Can you tell people what Creole means?
Well, I always had I don't know why I found it to be synonymous with Cajun, and it's not, because people will say like Creole or Cajun food, but the actual word Creole is basically just children of immigrants.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're like they refer to, so people that came over from Spain, France, kind of Africa, it was their children, so not the actual migrants that came
Exactly.
over.
Yeah. I think it had some sort of political motive.
Yeah.
But that's not what it means now. It's more of just an encompassing cultural meaning. So like there's all of these kind of cuisines that come from Creole culture.
Sure.
And that does make up a lot of New Orleans cuisine scene, whether it be fried chicken or how they cook the fried chicken, or how they do alligator or crawfish and all these other kind of items that's synonymous with New Orleans food scene. But Creole is it's everywhere, and it has this huge impact on the city.
I know. And I'm just kind of curious what the tie is with Haitian Creole. I know in Haiti they speak Haitian Creole as well as French. I'm just kind of curious. I know that there's a tie with French and New Orleans. Like the name New Orleans is French.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm not sure. New Orleans was founded by the French in 1718, but they changed hands quite a few times between the French and the Spanish before it was bought by the United States in the Louisiana Purchase.
The Louisiana Purchase.
We
all learned about that, and it's like, what on earth was that?
That's a
we bought
recall.
it like we bought Alaska or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was like something wasn't it super cheap?
It was something like 26 million or something. No, the equivalent of 26 million today or something. I forget. It was like super low.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
yeah, because of that influence from the French, from the Spanish,
15 million.
15 million. Wow. It just makes up this huge cultural impact onto the city. And then you have the African influence that's brought in with the United States buying Louisiana.
If you wanted me to read the actual definition that pops up when you Google it, I know you're about to ask.
Yeah, please.
It says is a person of mixed European and Black descent, especially in the Caribbean.
Okay. Yeah, that would.
So that would definitely cover the Haitian.
Yeah, Haiti. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's all I have for defining words.
I'm eager to hear your highs and lows.
Yeah.
Specifically your highs.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man.
Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad too. It's highs, lows coming to you.
It's a city full of water. There's lakes. There's a river. You have the Gulf of Mexico right there. And then you have swamps. So if you want your water fix, you really got it. So kick it off with your highs.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great introduction to my high. So Kristen is a huge fan of kayaking. So I wanted to mix kayaking with a tour to the swamp. And I think I've always kind of thought of swamps as something that would be like disgusting or gross, kind of synonymous with that.
Describe something as swampy. I'm not like, that's something I want to partake in.
Yeah.
No.
But I saw pictures of it and I was like, whoa, this looks kind of pretty. I definitely want to go see it for myself. So we did a kayak tour to Manchac Swamp, which was I think 30 minutes outside of New Orleans.
Okay.
And it was just so cool. We got to see so many different kinds of wildlife, specifically alligators. Alligators were...
You actually saw alligators?
Yeah.
In kayaks?
Yeah, in kayaks.
I would have been terrified. Why did...
They were cute.
Yeah, they were tiny. Yeah, we didn't see any full-grown alligators. What our tour guide...
People die on this tour?
They've never had an accident, apparently.
Well, they said that, no one who's ever died didn't have a bad review. So no one reviewed that they had died on the tour. So that was their justification and comfort. So
yeah.
Yeah, the tour guide said something like alligators grow a foot long for every year that they live or something up until a certain length. So if you see an alligator that's 3 feet long, it's only 3 years old.
Okay.
So we only saw...
that was about the average, 3.
Yeah, I think we saw one kind of hidden that was maybe 6 feet, but they were all they just wanted the sun. They could care less about us.
So they're scared of you or something?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're scared. I don't want to say that.
No, they definitely are. What? You sneezed and scared the one away. I got so mad.
Okay, a spider crawled onto my face, and I batted it out of my face, and it scared the alligator.
Do you think your guide had a gun just in case one of them just got your arm while you were...
No, he absolutely loved animals. He would have gladly let us die to save the animal.
Yeah.
My gosh.
No.
Were you nervous at all during this?
Not even a little bit.
Okay.
No, it was really cool. We got to see alligators. We got to see turtles. I think we saw a swamp rat.
Well, even the wildlife was cool, but even the surroundings.
Yeah.
Cypress trees and Spanish moss.
Yeah.
Very different.
Wow.
Flora, fauna.
We got to push through I don't want to say lilies because they're not lily pads, but they're water some sort of water plant, and we pushed through them to get deeper into the swamp, and that was just really cool because the waterway got really narrow, and we were kind of more ingrained into the swamp as we got to do the tour, and that was a really cool experience. It wasn't as so much on the open water anymore.
So that was a little bit of a maze because you go through and there are these standing cypress trees, which is the state tree.
State tree.
Because it's so oily that it can withstand, it doesn't rot. So it would just be standing trees.
Yeah.
Okay. How long was the tour? A couple hours?
It was 2 hours. So it wasn't too bad.
It's good.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't super exhausted afterwards or anything like that. It was really cool, really informational. Highly recommend it.
I would like to do that.
Yeah. Good way to see everything for a couple hours, doing something nice to kind of break up the drinking and the food themed thing. So I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, do that or do an airboat ride. Later on in the show, we have an interview with Debbie from Pelican Tours.
Pelican New Orleans,
Pelican New Orleans. And she gives some suggestions for some really good tours that are related to swamp tours and stuff. So But yeah, that was a really cool experience. And
speaking of food, really eager to hear. I told you, I said, do Cafe du Monde.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the first thing that we did. And there are several locations.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
We
man.
always
Absolutely.
take advice when it comes to
Food.
fried dough. Yeah.
Oh yeah. How do you screw? How could you even screw it up? You know.
Yeah. No.
Right. So there are like there are locations for Cafe du Monde all over the place, but the most famous one is the one next to Jackson Square.
I only thought there was one. There's more than one.
There's
cafe.
more now. Yeah, there's one in the airport.
Okay.
There's one in City Park.
That was smart.
Yeah, there are at least 3 places that I know of.
Okay.
But it's really cool. You just take a stroll to Jackson Square, get a beignet, listen to some live jazz.
What's a beignet?
Yeah, that's a
Kristen,
great question.
Can you explain what it is?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked me. I thought it was like a donut. People, I don't know when I say people, the Food Network made it seem like a donut. I would compare it to a funnel cake.
It's like a funnel cake meets a donut.
It's like funnel cake. But yeah.
In a ball format.
Oh, do you put the whole thing in your mouth or just like bite into it?
Just bite into it.
Just bite into it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was up for debate, but the civilized person would.
Fork and knife it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, no. That's a better way to scream you're a tourist. I mean, you're going to get covered in powdered sugar.
You just embrace it.
But,
they're also known for their coffee too. Cafe au lait. How do you say the
Cafe au lait?
Cafe au lait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Famous for the coffee and chicory blend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. But that's not all with food.
Yeah.
We also got to go to this place called Hot Tin. It was a rooftop bar at the Hotel Pontchartrain. And
cool.
That was really interesting because we got to just have a meal on top of this hotel and see views of the city.
Ooh. Throwback to our Philadelphia episode. Was there a dress code?
That is a great question. No, not for this one. I mean, you can't wear flip-flops or like athletic shorts or anything like that, but you don't have to wear a jacket, suit and jacket or anything. Some restaurants in New Orleans definitely have some of those kind of dress codes. So my advice to you is to make sure what the dress code is for a restaurant that you're interested in, because there are a lot of them that have, I don't want to say strict dress codes, but you might need a suit.
Yeah, and we did everything in a carry-on, so that kind of limited what we could do. Is Commander's Palace?
Yeah, it's jacket. You need a jacket for it.
That's a very popular place that people go to eat, so we didn't go there because of that, but
no excuses. Wear your suit jacket on the plane. Wear your slacks on the plane.
Always be ready to eat.
You got to be committed.
Palace.
Wear your dress on the plane.
Listen, I
save
had
some
a dress.
But my favorite experience and favorite meal came from a place called Dookie Chase.
Will, you were so excited to tell me about Dookie Chase. I love the history here. I'm eager for you to tell our listeners what you learned about Dookie Chase.
I think you could honestly do an episode just on Dookie Chase because it has such a rich history, but I'll try and sum it up. It was led by a woman named Leah Chase, who passed away last year at the age of 96, I believe, who was still cooking in the kitchen up until her death. She ran that kitchen, ran Dookie Chase for something like 70 years. It was named after her husband. And this place is such an iconic location. Leah Chase is such an iconic person of New Orleans that it's worth going just for that. But there's more to it. She was the inspiration to Princess and the Frog, the Disney movie that came out a few years ago. Yeah, Princess Tiana. She was the inspiration for that. Dookie Chase was also a location for a civil rights movement in the 60s. MLK had meetings there along with some other civil rights leaders.
Sorry, Princess and the Frog, Disney movie, 2009, starring Princess Tiana.
Yeah.
One of the 15 Disney princesses at the time of this recording.
That's how cool she is. She was an inspiration for a Disney princess. Really
Honestly,
cool.
one of my favorite Disney movies.
Goals.
You two have to watch it.
We would definitely want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, way to call us out.
I'm throwing you right under the swamp.
Yeah.
At the time of you listening to this, we have watched The Princess and the Frog, I promise.
Yeah, we'll make
You're going to make that commitment right now.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want to see both your hands up over your
But if you go to Dookie Chase, I recommend the fried chicken. It was delicious. I loved every bite of it, and I didn't want it to stop. And I highly recommend it. It's so good.
Tell us about your lows.
So, okay. Every city is kind of smelly to some degree, but what's interesting with New Orleans is that it has a pretty shallow water table.
Sure.
So water kind of rises. New Orleans has a drainage problem because of its water table. It's surrounded by water. So water can sometimes sit and be stale and kind of be gross.
Yeah.
And you mix that with a lot of drunk people vomiting on occasion, specifically in Bourbon Street. It kind of mixes for somewhat putrid odor at some points.
Yeah.
And weed is also legalized there. So there are people constantly smoking in the region as well. So
this could be a high for some people.
It could be a high for some people, and it's absolutely a unique thing. But but in terms of you get kind of tired of it, of smelling it, just like walking around and smelling the smell. But it's a pretty, it's a small low. It's not a break for the city at all. It's just something to keep in mind. But with that said, Bourbon Street has a lot of pros depending on who you ask, but keep in mind, this can be a low for some people depending on who you are. Bourbon Street has the atmosphere sort of like a frat party at night. Just expect a ton of drunk people. It's going to be a concentrated area of alcohol, of strip clubs, of restaurants, of jazz clubs, but it has. Don't be surprised if you see a naked person or two. So if you have kids, don't go down Bourbon Street at night,
right?
Unless you're okay with them.
How about during
experience
the day?
That. It's still really crowded. And it still has that party atmosphere, but it is subdued. Like we didn't see anyone we didn't see any girls flashing or anyone doing anything to that degree. But there are definitely drunk people still around.
Any good street performers?
On Bourbon Street, I don't recall. It might have been too loud.
Those are more on, what was the other street?
Frenchman Street.
Is that kind of where you saw better street performance?
Yeah, definitely. If you go to Frenchman Street, you'll absolutely see live music.
Okay.
Whether it be in the jazz club.
Yeah.
Or on the street, on the side of the street.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's still worth to check out Bourbon.
Yeah, I recommend
it's its own
seeing
experience.
it. Yeah.
And there was we got to see some cool jazz clubs. We were able to stop in and
there is one jazz club that I really liked. It's called Preservation Hall, and I don't know, I liked it probably because we didn't have to wait in line to get into it, and it was kind of like, okay, yes, we finally got to go in, see some jazz, sit down, have a drink. It was a much more relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I did read that it was like one of the more family friendly locations.
Yeah.
And even though it was on Bourbon Street. So if you have kids and you want to see some live jazz, like Preservation Hall, go there during the day, and you'll get to see some jazz.
Well, similar to you two, I would never put on jazz in my car or do a jazz station on Spotify.
Sure.
My dad loved jazz. Growing up, he put it on, and I always enjoyed it when he put it on. But I will say what really turned me on to jazz was seeing it live. Yeah. It's very different than seeing it recorded.
It really
Absolutely.
Is. Yeah, because it's very creative. It's impromptu, and they really put on a show. It's great to watch.
It was interactive.
Stand-up bass.
A little bit.
Yep.
They really wanted you to get involved.
Yeah.
You could tell the musicians enjoyed the feedback of when people were dancing, and it felt like I could see how it would be good, for communities and everyone involved. So,
yeah, no risque lyrics you have to guard your kids' ears from either.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. That I know of.
That takes it for our lows. You did a great job. I give you an A+ on your feedback. Thank you,
sir.
But I need your tips.
Well, let's get into it.
Tips from the travel agents.
Rent a car, don't rent a car. Rent a car, don't rent a car. What do you think?
Oh, okay. So it depends. If you want to save some money and you don't want to do a tour to maybe a plantation or something, maybe rent a car for a day. Plan ahead and just rent a car for a day.
We did not.
We did not. And I regret it only because I wanted to go on a plantation. I wanted to see the plantations.
Sure.
And I didn't really want to spend the extra money for a tour. And we couldn't Lyft there or Uber there because they say that they won't pick you up. There won't be any in the area to pick you up. So you either need to go with a tour or you need to rent a car.
Rent a car, sure.
Yeah, so it does give you a little bit of options. There's a national park, like I think 45 minutes to 60 minutes from New Orleans. So if you're interested in seeing that, you would probably need to rent a car or, again, book a tour. So if you want to make a day of it, just rent a car and do it. But would you need it for the entire time of your trip? Probably not. There's a lot of one-ways, and the areas around Bourbon Street and the French Quarter are super populated, and you're going to be in the French Quarter if you go to New Orleans. It's almost guaranteed. And it's pretty difficult to find a parking spot. And it's pretty difficult to drive around and navigate. Right. And our interview, she talks about that a little bit more too, and a little bit more
the crazy street names.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear about. So if you're looking for more information on that, stay tuned. But talking about the French Quarter, I have to say, don't just stay in the French Quarter. It's pretty easy if you go to New Orleans to just want to stay in that area because it's so famous. There's all these there's a lot going on. You have Bourbon Street, you have Royal Street, you have, a lot of shops and all these things. But if you stay in just the French Quarter, you're going to be missing out on a lot. You'll be missing out on something like some of the streetcars that you can take into Midtown or Garden City.
Yeah. What's the Superdome?
The Superdome is it's where the New Orleans Saints play. It's their Quicken Loans or Rocket Arena, right? So it's their football stadium.
Appreciate the Cleveland analogy. Now I get it.
Yeah.
When it comes to sports, you'd be very direct with me.
Yeah.
Or maybe some people now know that, Cleveland's, Quicken Loans is, never mind.
Oh, yeah. Like we're educating people on Cleveland every episode.
Right.
Just any plug we get.
Standard.
It's Rocket Arena now.
Wait, is it really?
Yeah, Rocket Mortgage Arena.
Right.
My bad. When was that change? Recently?
Oh, I don't know. Probably during like COVID or something.
Tell me about museums. What's going on with museums in New Orleans?
Oh, yeah. So there's quite a few museums. Again, this is another regret. I regret not doing one of the museums. So you can either do something like a death museum, where like the name suggests is a museum dedicated to death.
Wow.
Or you can do some things that are more catered to learning about New Orleans, whether it be Mardi Gras World, which has all these floats that are used in Mardi Gras, or anything related to Mardi Gras. You can go to Mardi Gras World and learn more about that. Or you can go to the Cabildo, maybe. It's right next to St. Paul Cathedral in the Jackson Square area. And it was basically the state house for the Spanish. And so you can go in there, you can learn more about Louisiana and New Orleans as a whole. But the most popular museum by far is the World War II Museum. It's like a huge campus, and they have dedicated museums to each campaign. So there's the Eastern Front, the Pacific Campaign, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I really, really wish I would have done that. I'm a huge fan of learning about World War II. So if you're interested in World War II, I think that's the museum you have to go to.
I actually, just a quick plug on museums, I have just been fascinated with some museums I've been to around the world. And I think growing up, we go to museums that just aren't that exciting, and we get we have a tour guide who takes us through at a pace that's cringingly slow, and we just museums get a bad rep.
Yeah.
I remember, it's interesting you said a museum about New Orleans. Well, Mardi Gras World is called.
There's Mardi Gras World, and then there's one like New Orleans and Louisiana as a whole.
Okay, right on. I remember in New York City, my mom and I went to the Museum of New York, and it was awesome.
Really?
It's really cool. So an idea about and I never would have thought, go to a museum about a city. So I would be interested to hear about that museum.
Sure, yeah.
That would definitely be something I would want to do next time, because there's so much history there.
Yeah.
That a Google search won't do it justice.
Sure. So do some sort of tour, get some history from a tour guide who knows what they're talking about. I like it. Tell me about Canal Street, and what are these infamous streetcars? I'm thinking, should I be picturing like a San Francisco Bay?
One of the trolleys there?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So
it's on rails.
It's on rails, yeah. They cost $1.25 per person per ride, or you can pay $3 for the Jazzy Pass and have unlimited access for the entire day.
Nice.
And you can download an app, the RTA app for New Orleans. and you can put everything in there. But what the streetcars do, I think there's 2 or 3 of them that run from Canal Street, and they either run on Canal Street to Garden City or Canal Street to the Midtown area. And it's a really fun, easy way and cheap way to get to some of these popular areas that are miles away from the city center. So if you're staying in French Quarter, you're not walking to Garden City unless you want to dedicate a whole day. Right. But you can walk over to Canal Street and then jump on the streetcar, and then within 45 minutes, you're there for $1.25.
Very cool.
And it's a cool experience because it's a moving landmark.
Yeah.
So really cool. Really recommend it just for riding in the streetcar, really.
Yeah. It's a nice break from walking a lot, and you can sit and enjoy the breeze and the views.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, for our Jewish or kosher listeners, what on earth are they going to eat in New Orleans? Are they stuck to beignets?
Almost, but not quite.
I don't know if stuck would be the right word.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I will say that finding a menu without shellfish, catfish, alligator, turtle, or pork was pretty difficult. Most menus were probably 90% those items. Okay. They might have like one beef dish. If you're lucky, they'll have that famous fried chicken. If you're going to a place that's known for the fried chicken.
So vegetarians and vegans, this will be tough.
Oh yeah, vegetarian even was pretty hard to find some things. I mean, you might be lucky and you might find
option.
You might get 1 or 2 items per menu per place.
Yeah, Ooh, they've got salads.
Did you do Banana Foster?
No, we did not.
No.
So when I was there, I did Banana Foster, whatever.
At Brennan's.
I think so. Yeah. Right on Bourbon Street.
Yep.
No. Maybe it wasn't. No, it was a block or wait, was this really far from Bourbon Street?
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it's in the French Quarter. Brennan's is really known for Bananas Foster.
There was live music there. I remember it was great. Anyways, yeah, go figure, live music. Yeah, they brought out. Was there
a bar beside it too?
Mm-hmm, there was alcohol inside of it too.
Wow, definitely the same place.
Yeah. Anyways, they brought out the whole thing and it was a show. So it was all special. Tell me about safety. Did you feel nervous walking around? Did you go down dark alleys? Would you have been scared alone, Kristen? How about you, Will?
I would have felt uncomfortable if Kristen was alone in the area, at night at least. New Orleans has a reputation for being pretty dangerous. It's definitely known that you should not walk down some of the dark, secluded areas, even as close to Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
So be careful of where you're going at times. If you can, travel as a group, but there are also a lot of drunk people, so that can also throw some things in the mix. Yeah. Just be careful. Just be careful where you're going.
Let's talk about something pretty now.
Absolutely.
City Park.
Yeah, this was probably one of my favorite things in New Orleans. Definitely one of the most visually appealing parts of New Orleans was City Park. It's this area in the city, and it's an urban park, and it's larger than Central Park in New York City. It's large. It's really large. You can see all kinds of animals there too. You can see alligators. If you don't want to go out to the bayous and you just want to stay in the city, you can go to City Park. And there's a bayou there in the park, and you can find some alligators if you're lucky. I will say it's probably harder, but they are there, and you can see other kinds of wildlife. And they have just gorgeous trees. Trees are not my repertoire, but are those the same type of trees that we saw in the swamp?
Cypress. Yep.
Cypress. Yeah, it's really cool. And there's actually an amusement park for kids in the park. So also Cafe du Monde. So hey, if you want to just, you could honestly probably spend a day there. It's super cool. And I regret only having spent 2 hours there.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to just, once again, kind of break up the views and get more nature. And
yeah, I think it's like maybe several miles from the city center. Like when I say city center, I'm talking the French Quarter. So if you don't have a car, you probably can't get a tour to City Park. You're probably going to need to get a Lyft or an Uber driver there, but you will be able to get back.
Tell me about Royal Street.
Oh yeah, I really liked Royal Street. In terms of my favorite area in the French Quarter, Royal Street's probably mine. I'm really interested in art, and there are a lot of art exhibitions there.
Sure.
And there was a really cool place called MS Rao, which was an art exhibition, but also treated as like a museum as well.
Oh,
you can go there and you can see all of these famous artifacts and pieces of art. And if you're rich enough, you can buy these things. I mean, there are Andy Warhol paintings for $3 million. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, but even if you're just interested in seeing some of the opulence on display, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Nice. So let's do a quick recap of all the important streets to have on your radar.
Yeah. So if you're going to go to New Orleans, you're going to want to know Canal Street, Bourbon Street, Royal Street, Decatur Street, Frenchman, and Magazine Street.
And Will, can you just give us a quick rundown on each one of those and what you're going to find on each one?
Sure. Canal Street is maybe, it's kind of the border of French Quarter and the financial district. Okay. So cross into one, you're going into the other area. Bourbon Street is the heart of Frenchman Quarter. It's the really popular party street. Royal Street has all of these exhibitions, some of the nicer hotels, maybe some of the nicer shopping areas. Decatur is kind of like at the end of French Quarter, and it's right on the Mississippi. So there's a lot of parks there. And by a lot of parks, I mean there's a handful of parks there. And there's a Frenchman's Market there too. It's really cool. So it's a local farmer's market. And let's see. Frenchman Street is the jazz club street. So if you want to see some jazz clubs, you're going to go to Frenchman Street. And then Magazine Street is another shopping street that extends from the financial district of New Orleans all the way to an area called Garden City, which is a really pretty little area.
Did you two have dinner reservations at all? Or did you just kind of
fly by? I made it pretty, I went pretty safe and had reservations for all of these restaurants. Some of these restaurants are super popular.
Yeah.
So you are going to need reservations. Like for Dookie Chase, to be safe, you're going to need reservations.
It's good.
Yeah, and we did that for lunch. It seems like reservations are the way to go if you want to be safe for anything, because we would be sitting there waiting for our reservations, and inevitably there would be at least one group of people that would come in asking to be seated, and the hostess would have to turn them away and say, no, we're all booked up.
Yeah.
Reservations only. So
I was looking at restaurants a week ahead, and almost all of them were like booked up for the times I was looking at. I got like the last reservation for Dookie Chase and one of the last reservations for Hot 10 for the weekend. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So get your reservations in ahead of time.
Before we get to our interview, I do want to go over some standby items, just see any odds and ends that were left out that you can educate and warn us about.
Of course.
New Orleans.
Let's talk about it.
It's safety and other info with standby items. Here we go.
People buried above ground? What's up with that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So New Orleans sits on top of a water table, and if you dig 6 feet into the ground, you're going to hit that water table. So because of that, they do not have cemeteries as we know them here in the north, or probably around most of the United States. They bury above the ground. So there are these. It makes for some really cool cemeteries, some really beautiful ornate tombs and stuff like that.
Right.
And because of that, there are no underground transportations like subways.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are some key places that you just can't miss when you go there?
Sure. So there are some notable New Orleans staples. There's the po' boys, there's the muffaletta, there are beignets, gumbos, snowballs, and hurricanes. If you're interested in po' boys, I recommend the Nola po' boys on Bourbon. If you're interested in muffalettas, which is a sandwich, it's like an Italian deli sandwich, recommend going to Central Grocery off of Decatur. Beignets, you've already talked about this. You got to go to Café du Monde. Gumbo, I couldn't eat, so I can't recommend anything for you.
I believe there's vegetarian gumbo.
There might be.
It would ever get that.
I don't know. I can't speak on that, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe not then. You know what? I'm thinking of paella.
Yeah, you're thinking paella. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I don't know
what
you're
gumbo
good. Is.
No, you're good, man.
Real quick, and a po' boy is a traditional sandwich from Louisiana. It almost always consists of meat, which is usually roast beef or fried seafood, often shrimp, crawfish, fish, oysters, or crab. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super good. Yeah, chicken. I went for the chicken. Really good. But there is a really famous bar called Pat O'Brien's that are known for these things called hurricanes.
Yeah.
And if you look up things to do,
hurricanes everywhere though.
They do have hurricanes everywhere. But if you look up, places to see, some like the touristy places, Pat O'Brien's is going to pop up for hurricanes.
Sure.
And I almost wish that we would have got another hurricane at another place to compare it to. I was thinking the same thing. We did not enjoy it. It was kind of like cough syrup, and they're huge. So if like you're interested in it and you have a group of people, maybe get one, try it, see if you like it. So
if you have any if you have fond memories of drinking Robitussin as a child, then you'll definitely like it. But
what flavor did you get?
There's only one. Yeah. It's like a cherry based drink, but it tastes like Robitussin.
Same with the grenade. Like you say, I would like one hurricane, please. And then they hand it to you.
It's actually less intimidating when going up to a bar with all the options. You know?
Yeah.
I've never been confident at a bar, especially a loud one where you have to scream your order and everyone can hear it.
Well, that's the nice thing about the takeout, the to-go. You can just make it really easy to get.
There you go.
Get liquored up.
There you go. 2005, we had Hurricane Katrina, unfortunately. Were there parts that were... I know, could you see the devastation? I know we're going to talk to Debbie a little bit later about this.
Yeah. So in the French Quarter, definitely not. It looks fine, but I guess in some parts of New Orleans, they're still recovering. Yeah. Not large parts. I'm talking like little pockets.
Okay.
From what I've heard from locals.
Gotcha.
So,
did you feel comfortable asking people about it?
Honestly, people were pretty free to bring it up at times. Okay. Yeah. Just be like, you ask them, how long have you been in New Orleans? And that kind of organically leads to them mentioning Katrina at some point. And they'll talk about their experience or whether or not they stayed. Okay. So that was pretty interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah. I want to hear about ghost tours. Did you do one? Do you wish you would have?
I think we both wish we would have done it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it would have been a pretty exciting, fun, different thing because there's a huge economy in New Orleans based off of voodoo, ghosts, and vampires, all that kind of lore. Mm-hmm. I don't know, this is just speculation, but there was a woman that lived in New Orleans who was known as the Voodoo Queen.
Okay.
Madame Laveau?
Yeah, Madame Laveau. So I think that's why there's a huge economy related to voodoo, but that's just a guess. But
got it.
Keep in mind that there's a huge economy related to that.
I can guess where you got those shoes.
Yeah. Okay. So this might have been a tip, but if you walk around the Jackson Square area, you'll probably come across these guys that'll come up to you and they'll be like, hey, I bet I can guess where you got those shoes. This is what's going to happen. If you entertain them and you say, okay.
Even for a second.
If you're like, okay, go ahead and guess. They're going to say any place in the world, and then they're going to hound you until you pay them money to leave them alone. So how do you get rid of them? Just tell them you got your shoes in New Orleans, or even just tell them you got your shoes in like wherever you're from. Just tell them where you got your shoes, and they're going to leave you alone. Otherwise, they're just going to hound you. We got asked like maybe 5 or 6 times within like a 3-hour period, in like maybe a 2 mile span. So like it's pretty frequent, and definitely I thought it was like a laughable tip when I heard of it, but it came into play like I think maybe within an hour or two that we were there. It was really quick. I was kind of like, wow,
can't stand that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it bugs me.
It was crazy, man.
Yeah. And so did you find that often people offering help with the expectation of money?
Yes.
Yeah, there were. We ran into a few guys that would offer help, and then they had the expectation of being given money.
Sure.
It's something as simple as like just asking you like, hey, where are you trying to go? And you tell them like, I'm just trying to find, this place. And then they'll either tell you really bad advice just to give you something in hopes of money, or they'll try and steer you to some location that I'm presuming is going to give them money.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's definitely an ulterior motive for some of these guys. So
we learned to be wary of whenever people would approach us with what we assumed was generosity, we soon learned was, had the motivation and expectation of being given cash. And to be fair, the one guy told us that as much.
Yeah.
He said, it's courteous that if someone gives you a tip that you give them a tip back. Sure. And I mean, he had given us maybe like 2 sentences and he approached us. So we learned that pretty quickly.
Seems like in every city, there's like the key trick or tricks. And I feel like in each episode, we should try to make it a point to touch on those, right? So like you touched on New Orleans, like I know in Beijing, there was the tea house trick. And
we'll talk about that on our Beijing episode.
In Paris, there was the rose trick. New York, it's the CD trick. Although you do get a CD, but it's blank.
It's just
I just gave away no, it was just a blank disc.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But so anyways.
It's better than a virus.
Right, yeah. Anyways. Tell me about the service.
Okay, so New Orleans is known as the Big Easy. That comes from being known as like being as big as New York, kind of having that ambiance, but moving a lot slower. And so I don't know if that's why, but service, we didn't have like great restaurant service at any of the restaurants we went to. Like waiters and waitresses were really super attentive. So I don't know. There was one where we just had to like wait 45 minutes just to like order between drinks and dinner or something like that. But just like keep in mind that maybe you might be at a restaurant longer just because of the service.
Yeah. Sure. I want to talk about Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras, is it like when Lent is finished? Is that how it works? There's Fat Tuesdays before Lent, or is that Mardi Gras? Shoot, we need a resident Catholic on here who can really just set us straight if you could figure it out. But Mardi Gras, there is a big tourism draw. It's different every year. I remember it always in February. Then I know sometimes it's in March. I'm sure it's maybe even in April too. I don't know, but I usually think February. It's going to be a pretty big. It's going to get pretty crazy. I just thought this was interesting. There are some cruise ships that will do. They'll go start in Florida, and then they'll like stop in New Orleans for like 3 days. So you get to enjoy the craziness of Mardi Gras, but then you get to go back to the ship where it's actually going to be quieter than if you stayed like on Bourbon Street. I do remember those sending some clients to New Orleans during Mardi Gras, and they specifically asked for like rooms that faced the inner courtyard as opposed to the street, which I think makes sense. So there's a little Mardi Gras tip for you, or maybe just any time of the year tip when you're going to New Orleans. Like if you're like, I like the party scene, but I don't want to be kept up all night. I like my sleep. Yeah. Then email the hotel, call them after you book your room and just say, hey, can I request a room that faces like if there's an inner courtyard or something like that, that's going to be quieter than the street view.
Yeah.
That's good. There was one thing that we didn't talk about that is actually really cool. And we didn't get a chance to actually experience this because of COVID, but there is a celebration that occurs, and it's a spontaneous kind of celebration. It's called a second line celebration.
Yeah.
And what that is, it'll just be like people marching through the streets, just an impromptu march.
Yeah.
In celebration, playing music, and just having just a small little parade. And they sometimes, or I guess more often than not, can be associated with funerals. There is a big funeral going on in the neighborhood we were staying at in Cheme, and you could hear the second line celebrations. And it was more of just a celebration of life. And that's a sort of theme that goes on with New Orleans, is that New Orleans just has a sense of celebration when it comes to life. And they don't mourn at funerals. They celebrate the life, and they have these second life celebrations. So it's a really powerful visual, and it's really cool even just to hear it. We didn't get a chance to actually see it. We saw like the remnants of it, but we got to hear it in our Airbnb, and it was just really cool.
Nice. All right. Well, it's always cool hearing from the tourists. However, it can be even more cool to hear from the locals. So let's get Debbie on here and hear about what it's like from a local standpoint.
It's interview with the local.
It's very exciting to have Debbie from Pelican, New Orleans with us tonight. Debbie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your personal history with New Orleans?
Oh, well, I came to New Orleans in 1974, sight unseen. Never been here. I fell in love with it, and I stayed until 1996, 22 years. Then I had to leave. I went back to the West Coast, and I was gone for several years, about 19, I guess. And then I thought, I really miss New Orleans. And so in 2015, I came back, and I'm here to stay.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
So really eager to hear from a non-tourist perspective, from a local perspective, what do you do when friends or family come to visit you? Where do you take them as a local? What places are you so excited to show them?
Oh, my God. I've been told I give a great tour. And some of the things that I always include, of course, we have to go to the French Quarter and walk around because it's the original heart of the city. That was the city of New Orleans. And it's very historic. And there's just so much to see and do there. And, you couldn't come to New Orleans without spending some time there.
Absolutely.
I also like to take people to the riverfront, which part of that is in the French Quarter also. The Mississippi River is just the most magnificent. They call it the mighty Mississippi, and it truly is. And here, there's so much going on along our riverfront, not just, with the shipping and barges and riverboats and just, so much going on all the time. And the river rises and lowers and rises and lowers. I've even seen in spring when there's been a harsh winter, I've seen chunks of ice floating down the river past New Orleans. It's just the most incredible river. And I always take people up where we can stand up there and look at it. And I tell them about the history of the river. And, it's like the life's blood of so much of the country. And it's just a fascinating history. And I like history. So I always make sure I show them that. I guess I would always include City Park. It's one of the oldest parts of the city. City Park is so big. People think of Central Park in New York, and they don't realize that our little city park here in New Orleans is a third again larger than New York's Central Park.
Wow,
it's huge. Yeah, it's super pretty,
and it's beautiful. And the oak trees have been there for hundreds of years, and we have all kinds of things where there's storyland for kids, and you've got paddle boats you can paddle up and down the canals, and there's an equestrian center, and there's so much going on there. It's just amazing, and it's so beautiful. You just have to spend time, or at least drive through it if you're on a tight time frame. The history of it, the dueling oak, where they used to actually have duels, hundreds of years ago. The Museum of Art. It's so beautiful. I just can't. I never get tired of it. I've been through there and spent so much time there over the years, and I never, ever get tired of it. I guess one of the things that I really like to throw at people is if they've never been here before, I drive up from City Park and I drive up over the levee and come down on Lakeshore Boulevard, and people go, "Oh my goodness, are we at the Gulf of Mexico?" And that's Lake Pontchartrain. Yeah.
Oh.
It's so big. It borders the whole northern top of New Orleans, and it's Jefferson Parish and all that by the airport. But what's so amazing is that at the narrowest part, it's like 24 miles across. You can't see the other side.
No.
And so if no one knows better, they just see this massive body of water with this beautiful park along, the whole border of it is all park in the city. And they all think they're at the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And I get a kick out of that. And I have to explain to them, no. And then we'll go sit in a restaurant out at the lakefront and talk about the history and, some of the storm damage and things like that have gone on there. But, just sit up on the balcony of a restaurant and overlook the lake or watch the sunset or something just to enjoy it. It's amazing. And of course, when people come here, you have to eat. Okay.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what do you do for food?
Oh my God. I like to get people to eat a little bit of everything.
Okay.
One of my go-tos is a cannoli at Angelo Bricata's. Okay. It's the best cannoli in the world. And I've eaten them all over the world.
Yeah.
It's the best ever. it's the best ever. And if they ever gave out the recipe, they'd have to kill you. So it's best to just go in and buy it and eat it. And I've never had anyone, dispute the fact that it's the best cannoli they've ever eaten.
All right. Yeah.
So there's a plug
That's
for
saying
Beignets.
something. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Fantastic.
But there's so much food. I mean, our seafood is so varied and so fresh. It's right out of the Gulf and our waterways. Our oysters, I mean, I love our oysters, and honestly, I don't like oysters anywhere else.
Yeah.
Except here.
You've become an oyster snob.
Yeah, I have. And we eat alligator. We eat
Wow. Alligator.
roadkill here is like, Sunday dinner. So we eat everything here. We eat everything. And
That's
it's
great.
prepared. Our chefs are just creative and just amazing. There's just always something new cooking up in the kitchen here. It's fabulous. Just fabulous.
Debbie, I was curious. I'm wondering, what is your favorite thing to do in the French Quarter?
Well, when I was younger, it was probably drink. I really enjoy dining there. I like just walking around and going in and out of the shops and the galleries. There's some wonderful galleries there.
Absolutely.
Again, going up to the riverfront, the moonwalk. Of course, you can't go down there without going to, having coffee and beignets, and there's several places you can get them at. That's kind of a must-do, must-see. And at Christmas time, I love to go around and look at all the decorations in the hotel lobbies. They really go all out for that. So, it's just, you can spend a whole day and evening down there. And the music in the streets, and then at night, you've got live music coming at you from open doors. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's exciting. August 2005, there was a Category 5 hurricane off the Atlantic, Hurricane Katrina. Are you willing to share a bit about this catastrophe and how it changed so many lives? And also, has there been any good that's come from it?
That's a loaded question. I was actually not living here when Katrina hit. I was watching it closely, telling friends to leave town, that this was going to be a bad one. But I did come into the city just a few weeks after it happened. So I got to see the devastation at firsthand. And it was just unbelievable, just utterly unbelievable. Of course, people still ask for the Katrina tour, which they were doing right after the storm. They were driving through these just decimated neighborhoods, and people were gawking out of bus windows. I thought it was kind of not very good taste, but people still want to, they want to come see the damaged levees and all that. But that was almost 16 years ago. Everything has been rebuilt. Neighborhoods have been rebuilt. Levees have been rebuilt. Pumping stations. Neighborhoods banded together. If you really looked hard, you could probably find the ruins of a restaurant on a lakefront that washed away. There's a few pilings sticking up, but the city is back with a vengeance, and they have put it behind them and gone forward. So there's nothing to see. It's a bad memory in everyone's mind and heart, and it's just go forward.
Can you ask locals about it? Or would
Some people will talk about it.
Yeah.
Some people will talk about it. I know people that actually have PTSD.
Yeah.
You just mentioned it, and they just start to see it because they lost everything, or they might have lost a loved one, or lost their home and every single thing. And and then some people just kind of go, "Oh, yeah, boy, that was a big one." So I think one of the good things is it taught people to pay more attention. So when they do say mandatory evacuation, people that never used to leave, they do now. So that saves lives.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Any word of advice for someone wanting to visit New Orleans, maybe for the first time? How would you best guide them?
Oh, well, that's a good one. My first advice would be don't rent a car.
Okay.
I'm sorry, car rental agencies, but honestly, the city is quite compact.
Yeah.
We have the historic streetcars that run all over the city. Walking in the French Quarter is an experience that you don't want to miss. We have pedicabs all over downtown and the French Quarter that are happy to take you 24/7. They'll take you wherever you want to go. if you want to go out of town or drive over to the Mississippi coast and you want to rent a car for a day, fine. But, like we offer all kinds of different tours, our company, and we offer pickup service at or near your hotel for just about every tour we do. So, and parking is very scarce, very expensive. And we have a lot of one-way streets, and they have unpronounceable, unreadable names. So trying to follow a map or get directions, and most of your GPS mispronounces the streets because they don't have the local, accent or whatever. Like it'll say, instead of Chapatulas, which by the way starts with a T, it'll say Chapitulus or something crazy. And you have no idea where you are. And also directionally, we're very challenged because the east bank of the river is actually west, and the west bank of the river is actually east. So that makes north and south completely opposite of what they are too.
Yeah.
So someone says, I live on the west bank. It's not really the west directionally. So it's very confusing. I wouldn't recommend that.
Right.
I would tell people use the public transit. It's also an experience. You'll ride on the St. Charles streetcar. It's the one of two moving historical registered historic landmarks in the country, and it's fun to ride. It's really fun. Beautiful homes along St. Charles Avenue. So you really want to do that. That I would say come with an open mind. Leave your diet at home. Don't come down here. Yeah, don't come down here and tell me you're on a diet or you're on keto or something like that. Because I'm going to just take you to the airport. You can go right home again.
That's good.
Seriously. Seriously. Some of the restaurants are going along with that now. Some of the vegan and things like that. So it's a little bit easier for people to eat. But if you don't like fish or fried food, you're in trouble.
Sure. Give us some of your top hotel recommendations, if just one or two, if you don't mind.
Oh, my goodness. There's so many great hotels. The Montleon in the French Quarter is very historic. We have the Ritz-Carlton on Canal Street, which is a historic building, but it's also first-class, beautiful spa, beautiful hotel.
Sure.
They're renovating the World Trade Center, and that's going to be a luxury hotel and condominium. The Hilton Riverside, it's I forget how many stories it is, 2,200 rooms, great view, looking right over the river. And there's all kinds of little boutique hotels throughout the French Quarter, too, that are just marvelous. I mean, they're in old homes and old buildings, and they have, you walk up a hallway to get to your room, and then you got to turn and go up 3 stairs, and then go down the hallway. It's challenging, but they're beautiful. I mean, they're just really quaint, really quaint.
Cool. There's too many Omni hotels. What's up with that? Can you cut through the brush and just what's the best Omni hotel to stay at if you're a tourist?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. I don't stay in the Quarter, much anymore downtown, but there's just it's hard to pick.
So
and
the French Quarter
I know
one,
hotel managers, so that's a great location. I mean,
okay,
the
perfect.
The Omni Royal was developed by the same guy that developed Park City, Utah.
Oh.
And Edgar Stern.
Interesting.
He and his wife were very, very active here. And the Longview Gardens, which was their home, they gave it to the city that's open for tours. But it's a beautiful hotel. It really is a beautiful hotel, and it's right smack dab in the middle of everything. So you can walk to every restaurant, the cathedral, Jackson Square, the river, everything.
Debbie, you've been far too kind. Give a plug for your company. Tell us about Pelican New Orleans as we wrap it up.
Oh, well, Pelican New Orleans is like an umbrella. We're the umbrella company, and under it we operate Cajun Encounters Tours, which operates probably the highest rated and the fabulous swamp tour in the whole state of Louisiana. We have legendary walking tours, and that's self-explanatory. We do walking tours in the Quarter. When they reopen the Garden District for tours, they do ghost tours. And we do a lot of private tours that we do for food tasting, pub crawls, things like that.
Yeah.
We have a restaurant in the French Quarter called Coterie, which is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And Audubon Limousine is our transportation company, and you can get a sedan, an SUV. We can get you a motor coach for 55 people.
Wow.
So we can move our people everywhere. And when a group comes in, they contact me as the group sales manager, and I put together pretty much customized itineraries for these people. And I can pick them up at the airport, shuttle them around, take them to their activities, set up their tours, dining, out of town, go up to the plantations, and keep them busy every day until I take them back to the airport at the end of the week or whatever their stay. So if you have any, and we do custom tours for, small groups, large groups, international. We have foreign speaking guides. Anything you want, we can provide it. Great. I love it.
Fantastic. Debbie, cannot thank you enough for being with us. You represent your city and your company very well. Thanks so much for being on the Travel Agents Podcast.
I love it. Brian and Will, thank you so much for including me on this. It was my pleasure.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Come to New Orleans, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
One thing that makes this podcast unique from other travel podcasts is that we're actually travel agents and we work for a travel agency. My great-grandfather started a travel agency over 100 years ago, and we have the pleasure of working there now as travel agents. The travel agency is called Kima Travel. You can find us online at www.kima.travel. Kima spelled Chima. And the best part is that when you support Kima Travel by letting us book your trips, you're also supporting this podcast. So you get our great service as travel agents and you're supporting your favorite travel podcast.
Absolutely. And if you're not interested in booking a trip right now, but you want to support the show, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com. And you can find our particular page in the description below. We are at buymeacoffee.com/thetravelagents.
We're the travel agents, that's the end of our show. Make sure to comment and subscribe.